again, so we're going to figure it out. But we got a minute, so we're good. We got our topic.
Cool.
You pour some tea?
I did.
You want to check if everything's moving? Hey, I know that guy.
Hey.
we like that guy.
Yes, we do. Where are we at? This is interesting.
Okay, we're on.
Hey, we are on. And it's public. This is good. This is good.
We got 20 seconds. I think we're just going to dive in, yeah?
I think we're good to dive in.
Okay.
We live on Facebook too?
Yep. We're live on, just about everything.
So day 2, and we're already 1% better. I think we upgraded more than 1%.
I think. All righty. Welcome in, everybody. We are excited to be here with you guys. And this is day 2 of 365.
Day 2 of 365. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling a little bit nervous. We've had a crazy day. And ever since we started this live stream, we've kind of had so many different realizations.
Yeah.
So I think we're just in the midst of it.
It's exciting, though.
We're live and we're just rocking and rolling. How are you guys feeling? 1 out of 10. How are you feeling? Rate yourself. Give yourself a quick pat on the back for being here and for making it through all the things that you've been through. When me and Andrew are on here today, we just want it to be a big, deep breath in, breathe it out type of moment as we just cover this topic, share some lessons that we've been through over the past couple of days, and some from, of course, years ago, and just share that with you guys.
I'm excited to jump in, man. But before we do, we have a very special topic today. But before we do, I'm enjoying this tea that you just brewed. You want to tell everybody where it's from and how we discovered it?
So this tea, it is it's a smoked green tea from Kyoto, Japan.
Let them have a sniff.
There you go. And it's only made in Kyoto. So we of course bought a couple of bags. But tea resembles just, for us, we come together, we talk about business, we drink some tea. It's a very calm in the storm type of drink. So we introduced it to this live stream day 2.
Absolutely. So if you don't already have it, get you a cup of tea or coffee or whatever your preferred drink is, and grab your notepad and be ready to take some notes, because we have a lot of special things to share with you today. And this is a marathon. This isn't a sprint. This is a thing where we're going to be showing up. In coming days, there's going to be technical advice, right?
Yeah.
Technical deal advice. If you want to grow your business, there's going to be a lot of things. But getting into this, you want to talk a little bit about today's topic and what we're going to delve into, Leo?
Yeah, let's hop in. So everybody at some point feels stuck. And it's not because of external circumstances or outside obstacles. We feel stuck because of our internal barriers. Thank you. The internal barriers of fear of failure, fear of success sometimes, fear of being seen, doubt that we have, and then overthinking in the mix of the vision that you have, right? You overthink, is this going to be perfect? Something I do a lot. You overthink whether things are going to work or not. So
who here can relate to that? Being a perfectionist and feeling like sometimes it needs to be perfect, and that can slow us down. That's something I've struggled with a lot, but that's a very good thing, because I think a lot of people who listen to this can relate to that.
Yeah. And Andrew, we talked this morning about all the breakthroughs we went through. I talked to a really good friend about the breakthroughs and sharing those things. And I realize now how important it is to show up authentically, even, with us showing up and saying, hey, I'm feeling this way.
Yeah.
This sucked really, really bad, or this happened and I don't feel good about it. But being able to still break through all the self-sabotage that goes through our brains
Yeah.
in the mix of whatever's going on. And being able to now step into faith, step into clarity, and use those two to bring you towards action every single day.
So what, by the end of today's half an hour that we spend together with everyone who's watching, what can they expect to take away or to get from this day 2 of the Trukin Daily Live show?
So we are going to talk about the 3 real struggles that most people go through, that Andrew and I sometimes go through.
Mm-hmm.
It is the lack of faith, the lack of clarity, and lack of action.
Write that down.
We're going to talk about, honestly, I'm going to bring up a thing that happened to me today that really taught me this lesson of trusting in God, having that faith and being able to push forward.
Yeah.
Like night and day difference, how I feel now versus how I felt at 5 a.m. in the morning.
That's awesome.
And then we're going to give you guys actionables of how to recognize the patterns and then how to actually break through the noise that's going in your head and the self-sabotage and the fear, and trust in God's vision for you, and then move towards that alignment through small steps.
But how cool that you get to have, like, literally what could have been 6 months or a year or 3 years to learn something. You learned it between 5 a.m. and noon. Right? Like for real, you think about that, and that's the opportunity all of us have. And sometimes I'll confess, I've been hard-headed at times.
Yeah.
So it's like I am going through the same thing, doing the same thing over and over, going, my gosh, why isn't this working? Yet if you can take that moment and reflect and go, wait a second, what lesson am I to learn here? You can really hyper speed learn. I see you do that often.
Yeah, I think when you have good people around you, like of course you and I chat occasionally, or every single day about these type of lessons, and we have people that are close to us that we talk about this stuff with.
Yeah.
But the difference is that we keep God in the center of our conversations. And that's a difficulty because sometimes I'm trying to tell you, Andrew, you got to do this based on my advice. Right.
Yeah. I think we all have that though, right? Like I got to fix this.
And that's the ego that we have to think that we have all the answers to fix everything, and that our understanding is stronger, right, than God's understanding.
Yeah.
Which is, I wrote down here, if you want to cover this, if you want to open this up for discussion for us.
Yeah, so Proverbs 3 talks about trust in God with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And I go on to that to say, this is in all of our ways to acknowledge him, and he'll direct our path, our steps.
Yeah.
And as people who have faith, we believe that there is something guiding us, someone higher. And looking at it that way, it's like, wait a second, there's a word I want you to write down, and it's called surrender. And what does surrender mean to you?
It is something I struggle with a lot. But surrender is being able to realize that God has a vision for you, and everything you go through is here to help you, right? Life happens for you, not to you. And being able to surrender is saying, I'm going to do what I can control. I'm going to control what I can control.
Right.
But there's a lot of things that we cannot control. We can't control the outcome. We can't control how people feel. We can't control the weather. We can't control how other people drive. We can't control a lot of things.
Even though we want to sometimes.
Exactly. So surrender is being able to take your hands off and trusting that everything's going to be okay. But it does not mean not taking action. That's something I made a mistake on for so long, was like, okay, God's got it, so I'm going to do literally nothing.
Right.
And
that ain't what he meant.
So as I started to understand what surrender really meant, it was, okay, I'm going to take it one step at a time, but trust that God's got it.
So you brought an illustration to mind. I once heard somebody say, God is not in the table making business. God's in the tree business. We got to build the table.
I like that.
And to say God's got it, I'm doing nothing, is to say, my gosh, well, I don't have a table. And there's trees all around us, right?
Right.
But to, on the other hand, stand there and yell at the tree, grow faster, isn't probably going to accomplish getting us a table.
Right.
And so it's a balance of saying, okay, I like what you wrote down, Leo. You said, trust in God versus leaning on our understanding. Meaning, thank you. If we trust God, we're not fully leaning on our own understanding or our own actions to get it done. We realize it has to be a mix. God says, I give you breath, I give you trees, you build the table.
Yeah.
And so understanding that balance, because that's something I think, as my belief is, as humans, we're all prone to extremes. So it's either like, I'm all in on this faith thing and like, I don't have to do a darn thing, or it's, I'm all in on this action thing and stress out nonstop.
Right.
Once we can really start to identify what that balance is, like, okay, I've done what I can, God's got this. Like, everything begins to shift. And I share that because I think probably some of you listening to this, you have that in your business or your life, right? Whether it's family, relationships, friendships, money, deals that you're working on. It's like that moment of, how do I fix this thing, which is the entrepreneurial spirit, right?
Right.
And there's a positive to that, but also there's a moment of surrender. And there's things that can only happen. He was talking about working in flow. There's things that can only happen and will never happen until, and not until, we surrender.
This is very needed right now, and sometimes we teach what we most need in the moment, and that's what we talked about today when coming up with this topic of, damn, you know. And I told you, so this morning, I woke up. You were awake.
Yeah.
It was like 4:55 a.m. Right?
Yeah.
And I was just praying to God. I said, God, please be like 2 a.m. or something. Like, I really hope that Andrew's awake, just taking a piss real quick, and not, because he wakes up at 5. And I sat there and I decided to get up, and I look at the phone. It's 4:59. And I'm like, okay, I got 60 seconds to just be in bed for a minute. And I felt my jaw absolutely locked, because when I'm stressed, like if I stress out in an evening, I clench my teeth like this so hard. And then throughout the night, I don't notice it. And then my jaw locks. And I sat there feeling for some reason, you know this, when you're physically in pain, business stress is like 10 times.
Yeah.
Because
especially early in the morning.
Especially at 5 a.m. in the morning. Because I was thinking, if I can't speak, I can't do the live.
Yeah.
I can't talk to students. I can't make content. I can't do all this stuff. So I started to look up and be like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And I really wanted to stay in bed. And I did stay in bed for 10 minutes. I stayed in bed in a negative loop, in a negative cycle.
Yeah.
Until I sat back and I was like, okay, this sucks. God's got a bigger vision. There's something here that I can learn. So I said, okay, let me just count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I got up. I put my feet out, went to the alarm, or went to my phone, put it aside, and I just sat there and meditated. And I did my routine, and I washed my face. I brushed my teeth. I went to the gym. And then we were in the gym. We did a really hard workout.
Yeah.
Right. But then all of a sudden this morning, we solved most of the challenges that I was so scared of looking at the ceiling. So I say that story to really highlight the fact that when we just trust that there is something here for us, you know, in the hardest times, when we feel the most in pain, when we feel so stuck, there is a light there. We trust in that. And then we take small steps. And then those small steps turn into momentum, and that allows us to realize that, hey, if we just trusted all along, there didn't have to be any anxiety.
And I think that's the same thing because there's a lot of ways that lack of faith shows up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it is the fact that we know we're going to get the same result. So do I want to be stressed out and not enjoying life for the day or the month or the year until I get the result? Or do I want to surrender, do what I can, and get to the same result? And that, for me, actually a better result. Because once you start working in flow, like things happen when you, something my pastor said on Sunday in Louisville when I was back in Louisville, he was talking about working in God's economy. And like when you step from the natural realm to the supernatural realm, like I call that a state of flow because things that used to took hours or days to accomplish suddenly just flow. And used to feel like such hard work to call 100 people to get a certain result, and now I'm in flow, and it's the same amount of calls gets a much better result because we're in flow. We know what to say. We're trusting. We're in faith,
Right.
and that really changes things. But a lot of real struggles I think people struggle with, including me sometimes.
Yeah. So let's dive in then to identifying the real struggles that we all go through, which number one is lack of faith. So those of you who are taking notes, lack of faith, write that down. So lack of faith is doubting God or yourself, right? You doubt your abilities. You doubt that you can get this done, or you doubt that you have the capability to even learn this thing to get through it, or doubting that God has your back and he's guiding you through the pathway and that he has a vision for you. We find ourselves so much doing things in this doubt mentality, and it ends up being a very weak action, right? You might make a call to somebody, but you have doubt, and they can hear that in your voice. And that's something I think of so much. Like, how can I make sure that I'm sitting back and asking myself, am I doubting myself right now? Am I nervous that I won't be able to do it? Or is it that I'm not trusting God? I'm not trusting that, I'm not remembering that he understands what we're going through and he can lead us in the right pathway. When I'm outside of that, those two frameworks, that is when I'm so lost. And that is when I'm so unclear. And these emotions come up and I just don't know how to handle them because I don't have that faith.
Yeah, I think that's big when we can identify what it is that we're actually struggling with, right? Because a lot of times we think it's, we first notice the surface problem. Oh, I just need to solve this problem. I just need to figure this out.
Right.
And it's actually the underlying thing, and that's just a symptom. You know, if we have a headache every day for a month in a row, we can take Tylenol every day and it makes it better. But there's probably an underlying issue we need to get dealt with.
Right.
There's a health thing that we need to look at. And so the real struggles, as you're taking notes and writing this down, the real lack of faith shows up in many forms and fashions. But it comes down to that one thing is the root of a problem that solves so many challenges.
So number two is lack of clarity.
That's a good one. That's a big one.
So lack of clarity is when overwhelm kicks in. This is when you're unsure of the next step, right? We in our business try every day to sit down and get massive clarity on next steps. And when we do that, it allows us to say, okay, we don't know the next 500 steps. We don't know the next 100 steps, but we do know at least the next two.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes in one of our projects, we don't know that next step, and then we'll start to get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
That overwhelm bleeds into the rest of our business. That overwhelm bleeds into our gym time, because during gym time, my dog is here crying. In our gym time, we're trying to sit down, and instead of working out, we're like, okay, what do we need? What's the thing?
Yeah.
But really, we're just looking for clarity.
Something I often have told people when I've made a practice when I'm on a sales call, when I'm closing deals, real estate deals, is I always say, write it down, lay it in front of you when you're on the phone with sellers and real estate deals, say, what's my next step? Because it's easy to have a great conversation with a seller once you get, decent on the phone. But then you go to get off the phone and you're like, oh, I really wish I could make this a deal. Well, what's my next step?
Right.
There's only 3 next steps in that business that I categorize. 1, it's a dead lead. Next step is toss it. 2, it's a follow-up. Or 3, it's a deal. We come to a verbal agreement, send a contract. And once I clarify those 3 things are one of these 3 things are my next step, I don't need to figure out 17 steps forward. Oh, what am I going to do with it? How am I going to close it? When is it going to happen? Where do I need to send? All of that stuff is blanks that will be filled in. Right now, I have one of 3 actions I can take. Toss it, follow up, contract it.
Right.
And I think in each area of your life, you're really good at doing that in all aspects of business or life. And it's like, okay, what's the next thing?
And that comes from so much pain of like, okay, we don't know what to do at all.
Right.
And then trying to plan 1,000 things and then realizing that planning 1,000 things never works.
Right.
Right. And we talk about this so much when we try to plan 100 steps forward.
Yeah.
It's like we're not leaving room for serendipity.
Faith or flow.
Exactly. So then we start.
That's a good word.
It is a good word. Serendipity is this idea of that luck comes to you, right? That you attract luck, that you attract good blessing, and things happen to you for a reason. But when we try to plan everything, you're not leaving space for that. You're not leaving space for that type of faith. So this goes to the third real struggle, which is lack of action.
Write it down. 1, lack of faith. 2, lack of clarity. 3, lack of action. Lack of action can show up so many ways.
Procrastination.
Yeah.
Perfectionism.
Oh, that's a good one.
Fear of failure.
Yeah. Often when I go to avoid something, if I find myself moving something on a calendar more than 3 times, I ask myself why. Right? Because maybe today I had a meeting and I needed to move it, or I had I had blocked out to write X email, do X thing, and it's like, oh, I got busy with this other thing. Let me just move that. Right. If I move it once, maybe it's because I'm working on other projects. If I move it twice, it might be an underlying thing. If I move it a 3rd time, I am subconsciously avoiding that. I want to figure out why.
Right.
Am I fearful? Am I not clear? Is there something I'm not understanding? Why is it that I keep moving this thing? And when it comes to the linchpin in our life, that point where that one thing, that one shift, and I'll tell you in a moment about a linchpin in my life, that one shift that takes you from where you are to where you know you need to go. Mm-hmm. And, we're surrounded by opportunities and we do all of these little actions that have little results or little reactions.
Right.
But then there's those moments, and sometimes we don't even realize that that's what it is when we're making the decision, where it's a linchpin moment. And this one thing that happened, if I hadn't have hopped a plane and flew to Key West, then maybe I wouldn't have met you. And had I not met you, maybe we wouldn't have launched the businesses we've launched, which maybe would, like all of these things, it's a linchpin moment. Those are God moments.
Absolutely. Also, shout out to my mom who's on here. She was the one that got me to go to Key West. She convinced me to go in the middle of 2020 to go.
Your mom is awesome.
Shout out to my mom. Anyways, so lack of faith, lack of clarity, lack of action. So I talked about this morning of feeling so stressed and my jaw locking up and having all these issues come up, being anxious about 1,000 things. Thank you very much. And what Andrew was talking about earlier was this self-awareness that he had of pushing those meetings back. That right there is a key principle that we want to talk about, of how important it is to have that self-awareness to say, okay, I have a lot of fears right now. Yeah. And those fears are, I'm scared of being seen. I'm scared of failing. And I'm scared of when I fail, or if I fail, people looking down on me or people losing respect. So then we can then identify what the real fear is of us taking action and saying, okay, this is what I need self-therapy on, right? I need self-therapy, asking myself, why do I fear that rejection, or why do I fear that failure if this happens? And when you answer that question for yourself, you get clarity.
Yeah.
And when you get clarity, you can say, okay, let me just take the first step because it's going to be okay. And then you also have that faith knowing that you're good. You have that faith trusting yourself, trusting in God, and trusting in the process. And that has changed absolutely everything for me.
So I want for you guys who are watching this, and we're gonna be calling some of you guys. We're day two,
Day two.
of this, and it's exciting to me because we're gonna be getting your feedback and continuing to shift this. And our prayer is that you see the real, the raw, the behind the scenes. Two brothers hanging out, running some businesses, who are dealing with real challenges, who are really experiencing breakthroughs and successes. And yes, we love to show those. And it's not always easy, right? There's challenges, there's difficulties, there's decisions that come up that have to be made that have real consequences. And so really showing you guys those things and helping you be better closers, better business owners, better entrepreneurs, better family, whatever it is that you want to improve, but that accountability to inspire you to consistently take that action. And you want to talk a little bit about anxiety and faith and how you match those two up before I get into a little bit of a linchpin moment in my life?
Yeah, I'll talk about it right now. I had a little bit of anxiety seeing the audio go while you were talking to see if it was echoing. In the chat, if you can, type in if our audio is good or not.
If it's good, type a thumbs up or a yes. If it's not good, say not yet.
Right, we'll fix it.
We'll
so
fix it.
The anxiety I went through was like, oh crap, the past 20 minutes has been echoed. And then I sat back and thought, okay, even if it is echoed, this is our second one out of 365. We're going to be able to go back to this and we're going to be so happy that we had these moments of like not knowing how to run a live stream or not knowing how to perfect the cameras. Me and Andrew just took a crash course over the past 4 hours of like figuring out how to do all this stuff. And we have messed up so many times, but we have that trust knowing that we're going to look back. We're going to look back at this, have the retrospect to say, we learned so much from that moment. And our brotherhood improved because we had that moment of messing up and being anxious if this is going to work out or not.
Yeah.
But in reality, if we now have that faith and have that trust that everything's going to be okay and that there is a bigger picture for everything, then right now, in this very moment, when I was anxious 17 seconds ago, I can say, it's all good. Let's just keep going. Let's actually talk about this on the stream right now. But that is an exact representation of what we do every day in our anxieties.
Yes. Well, and I think what's so important, we were just talking about this before we went on live, but we live in a highlight reel world sometimes. It's easy to hop on social media, hop on Facebook and see somebody's win, see somebody's big check they just got, see somebody else just closed a deal, got a new house or whatever. And it's easy to not see the behind the scenes, the tough parts, the decisions that were made, the challenges. But what you just said, we chose to let the challenges of something we don't know what the heck we're doing on to just draw us closer together and have a fun time doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a point for everyone who's listening in your business. I used to view a challenge as, gosh, I got to figure this darn thing out. I'll be glad when it's over. Now I look at it and I say, like, this is an incredible opportunity because I need this rep apparently, or God wouldn't have gave it to me to get to the next level. Yeah. The higher the level, as one of my friends and mentors often says, the higher the level, the higher the devil, right?
That's what I was saying earlier. I didn't want to say it, but I was talking to a friend who was actually on here, and she guided me through these ideas of like, hey, when you're working bigger projects and you're truly chasing your vision, like, and our vision being wanting to help more people, right? Wanting to expand the kingdom, wanting to inspire people, which is, of course, is good. Like it's righteous, in our way. And what we've understood is that when you're trying to do good, when you're trying to build, there's going to be, I don't even know the word, things trying to attack you, tear you down.
Absolutely.
It's what we've seen with some of the greatest people, right? People try to tear them down. We've seen it with the election, right? And when we start to realize that, we can say, okay, there are quote unquote enemies against that.
Right.
But if we can have the faith that there is something stronger working in our favor, and then we have a strong brotherhood with loyalty, and we have good people around us that can guide us through, that builds foundations of faith.
Absolutely.
To then, in the daily processes, in the hourly process, in the minute by minute processes, you can remind yourself of that framework of faith. Hey, God's got it. We're good. I know there's things that are struggling right now and that really hurt, but that's going to teach me what I need to learn to build out this big vision that I have.
And you touched on something there, Leo. And this business was not meant to be done alone. When we say impact people, we're bringing you guys together. So some of you are going to be hanging out with us here in San Diego next month. And we're going to be together for 3 days, delving into business and money and all sorts of good things. And I think it's important. We're about to wrap up with some actionables. But, I think back of 2014, and I was driving down the road and I heard a radio ad. And I was talking about linchpin moments and using faith. And I was just reliving that moment today. And I was asking myself, like, what's some times in my life that I've had massive fear and then chose to overcome that with just believing. And I realized that a lot of those times come around money.
Mm.
And so I was like, I used to have a lot of fear around money.
Right.
And so a lot of the instances I was thinking about involved money. And one of them being a pivotal moment, I was in my 2016 Toyota Tacoma listening to a radio show.
Oh.
And I heard a radio ad. And that radio ad is where I picked up the phone and went to my first real estate seminar.
Yeah.
But when I called, it was at 3,400, I think, 3,800, some large investment for me at the time. Like I didn't have that much money
to the event.
to go to the event.
And this was 2015.
And this was 2014.
What
and
were
I
you
was
making
broke,
at that time?
Less than $30,000 a year.
Got
so
it.
It's like
okay.
2 months of income.
Yeah, a lot of money.
Yeah. So I'm like thinking, gosh, that's 2 months of income. I don't even have it right now. So I go borrowing the money, scraping, doing what I can to pull it together. And I found myself a few weeks later at a seminar.
Yeah.
And I started learning to do deals. And I think of that moment because that was a linchpin moment that I could have said, oh, gosh, no, like I was terrified. I just was reliving. Like I remember laying in the hotel room. It was like $120 a night for the Hilton. And I thought that was outrageous.
Right.
And I was just terrified out of my mind, doing the math, counting the dollars for the seminar, the hotel room, fuel. Like I had it all laid out.
Yeah.
Because every one of those dollars were so important to me. And so I just was reliving that and realizing that was such a faith over fear moment.
Mm.
And one that we get to choose every day. Maybe it's not that obviously pivotal, but maybe it's how we talk to our spouse or our kids or our parents, or how we react in a situation, money or business. And when those things start to happen, we always have those opportunities, and how we exercise in that moment is getting us ready for those linchpin moments.
100%. That is a crazy story. So I hope you guys were able to unravel that a little bit. But I want to dive into our last piece of this segment, which is, of course, the actionable. We talked about my story of this morning. By the way, my jaw is unlocked and it feels great. And now I'm so much more stress-free, even though I woke up with like a level 10 anxiety this morning, but I was able to break through it. Just like every other time I've had that anxiety, I was able to break through it. Same thing for you. Every time you've had a level 10 anxiety, you've gone through it.
Yeah.
You're still alive.
Always.
You have been through some of the highest and worst anxieties that you could ever think of, but you were still able to get through it. And you're still here today. And, we congratulate you on that. And we want to help you solidify that, give you the framework that has worked for us and that we continue to use every day, and that we hope that you can take away from this live stream today. So the first thing that I want to talk about of what to do is recognize the patterns.
I have to share what came to my mind here.
Please.
You said the first thing, and I was just thinking we're getting near time to wrap up, and it reminded me of my dad in church. He used to preach for 30 minutes, and about 42 minutes into the sermon, he'd say, "As I continue to close." So I promise we have a list of actionables we're going to give you. You're going to write down.
There are 1, 2, 3 actionables.
So number 1.
So as we come to close, actionable number 1 out of 3 is recognize the patterns. Have the self-awareness like we talked about to say, okay, I have massive anxiety right now because of fear of failure and fear of poverty. That's a big one. For a lot of people, they have a lot of money trauma if they come from, a family that was not financially stable, financially secure. So recognize those patterns first. Once you recognize that pattern, how do you start to step back and surrender and trust the bigger plan? How do you do that?
Oof. Yeah, I think the first thing is, and this is my personal experience, is I just talk to God. And there's 3 things that I do that always move the needle for me. I talk to God. I talk often to you or one of my closest friends. And number 3, I will sometimes write out like strategy. What's the thing I can do to shift this right now? Why am I feeling this? Is it, because everything's worse when you've not slept enough.
Yeah.
Did I not sleep enough? Did I
not drink water?
Not drink water. Did I do something? And so you start to look at your habits. I got the Oura Ring, tells me if I slept good or not. So I check my app, but I start to look at, okay, is there an underlying reason? And now how do I solve it?
So what I want you to do with 1 and 2 out of 3, I want you to sit back and pay attention to your thoughts right now. So just take a quick deep breath for 3 seconds and let it out for 5 seconds. When you first do that and you let your brain calm down for just a minute, then you can catch a glimpse of self-awareness and mindfulness in that very present moment to say, okay, what are these thoughts that are going through your mind? Because you have to disconnect from those thoughts for just a second. And it's a big topic here, but if you just disconnect from those thoughts that are racing through your mind, you can start to understand that those thoughts are not you, right? If all of a sudden you started listening to music and you were hearing those lyrics aren't you. You just heard those lyrics. So when you can detach from those thoughts, you can understand that yes, these thoughts control you, but they are not you, and they don't have to control you. That is self-awareness, to say, I'm thinking anxious thoughts. Let me back up for a second and do number 2, which is trust the bigger plan. Trust that God's got you. Trust that if you take 1 step at a time, the next one will appear. If you just count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get out of bed, you're already up. You might as well go do your morning routine. Once you've done your morning routine, you have enough energy to go to the gym. You're at the gym, you just worked out, did a really hard workout, you'll start to realize that, hey, I just crushed the gym. I know if I can do that, I can also crush these little business problems that are going on. But it's just about taking that first step, listening to what's going on, and then saying, hey, I can just take the first step. Like, I don't have to do 1,000 things right now, which is what I'm overwhelmed about. I can just do the first thing that I think is aligned with my vision, which leads us to number 3, which is asking yourself this one question. Do you know the question?
Yeah. What can I do today, or what steps can I take today that start to connect me with my goals? What's the needle moving action, I call it?
There you go.
And I think the takeaway I want each of you to have today is to really just gain clarity and ask yourself, what is it that I need to do? Sometimes we need to go gather more information. Most of the time, we just need to do the one thing we know.
Right.
Right? if you're back to business example, if you're doing sales calls and you keep screwing up the sales call, okay, cool. Definitely go take a moment and gain more information on how to get better on the sales call, right? But if you've been studying how to do sales calls for the last 4 years and you just are waiting till one day you're going to make your first one, pick up the freaking phone already. And so
Right.
understand what that means to you. What's the one thing I can do today? I ain't got to do next year's plan. I ain't got to do 400 things. I ain't got to do 400 deals. I just have to take the next step. What's my next step? Write that down. What is my next step?
So as we continue to close, come very near to the close here. We're getting better at sticking to time. Just ask yourself that. Right now, I take a deep breath in. I recognize what's going through my mind. I trust the bigger picture. I sit back. I trust that it's all going to be okay, that everything happens for a reason. And even if you mess up and you make the wrong choice, you're going to learn from that and improve. And then we step back and say, what is the one thing that I can do right now that connects me to my bigger vision? It might be you wanting to build your business and you wanting to create a bigger income. Okay. What is one thing you can do to improve the skill that actually creates that income or improves the business? Maybe there's one call you can make. Maybe there's one text you can send. But there's always one step that you can take that moves you to the next step.
So, as we wrap it up, I want to share with you and thank you guys for being on here. I see comments from Brian and Kay and Randy and Brandon.
Who's currently on? Could we just shout some people out?
Let's see.
I know Leslie's on. I see Carly.
Yeah.
I see my mama.
Hello there. By the way, thank you for those Christmas gifts. I love those.
Oh, my MacBook's about to die. We got to wrap it up. You can go ahead.
So, look at your notes. Ask yourself, what is my next step? What is the thing I can do? We're going to be back tomorrow, same place, same time, holding you accountable. But I want you to have this note. What is one thing you can do before you show up here at 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow? What's the action you can take, the call you can make, the connect, the meetup you can do to? What's the thing you can do? By the way, if you're not, how can you get registered for our 3-day event in San Diego coming up in February? What's the one needle-moving action you can take? Ask yourself that, and I challenge you to do it. Maybe it's get up at 5 instead of 6. Get up at 7 instead of 8. One needle-moving action between now and tomorrow at this time. And I promise you'll start to see improvement.
I love it. You guys are loved. This is going to be an incredible rest of the day, and we'll see you tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific time. Same time every day, Monday through Friday.
We'll be here. We're going to bring the energy, and we're going to have a lot of fun for day 3. Bye for now.
Peace. Bye, guys.